When Indian motorbikes were in their infancy in the United States, and Harley-Davidson were yet to be thought of, Joe Phelon and Harry Rayner had already patented the sloping stressed member engine concept that was a characteristic of many Panther motorbikes throughout their long history. My bike dates to 1960, or more accurately parts of this one do, because it was built from sundry bits a few years back. As the last and largest iteration of the robust Panther machines, my bike, a Panther M120, has a single-cylinder 650cc engine and a Burman 4-speed gearbox driving the rear wheel by chain. By this time, Phelon and Moore had added such modern innovations as telescopic forks, rear suspension, and brakes on both wheels, but otherwise the design wasn't much changed from bikes from the 1930s. "So how does she go, mister?" Well, if you equate motorcycles with speed, you'll be sadly disappointed. This bike looks, sounds, and feels like a vehicle from an earlier time. Even in 1960, compared to the BSA's, Nortons, and Triumphs of the time, it was woefully old-fashioned. But of course, that's part of its charm. It's slow, clunky, and ponderous. And if I were really cruel and had plenty of time on my hands, it might struggle up to somewhere over 70 miles an hour. But it's far happier chugging along at 55, at which speed it feels composed and comfortable. The Burman gearbox is what you might expect from a bike of the period. It grinds or clunks into first gear, and thereafter it's best to short shift and get into top gear as soon as possible. Changes need to be taken slowly and with a degree of firmness unknown to riders of modern bikes. Panthers have immensely heavy flywheels, so fortunately are happy to go around corners without changing down too much. Just let the revs drop, turn, then chug away. Returning to cruising speed will happen eventually. I had two Panthers in my teenage years. In those days they were thought of as a big, heavy bike. Nowadays it feels like a bicycle compared to some of the Goliaths on the road. The handling is stable and predictable, but lethargic. The brakes are, how can I best put this, of their time. The back brake is surprisingly effective, the front merely adequate. No doubt they could be improved with a bit of tweaking, but for back road riding, away from the cut and thrust of traffic, they're fine. I've been struggling with persistent oil leaks for ages. I'm almost there, but after a good long run, she's still a bit of a drooler and smoker. British bikes are notorious for their incontinence, so she fits right in. Legend has it that Panthers will kick back and happily break your ankle, so you have to religiously follow the starting procedure. I won't bore you with it here. And my bike has, wait for it, electronic ignition, so it starts right up with no trouble. Like most bikes of the period, it has a 6-volt system. The head and tail lights are surprisingly bright, but the charging system can't keep up with them, and running with the lights on gradually drains the battery. I'll be changing to LEDs eventually, which should fix that. You would think because it's slow, has poor brakes, ponderous handling, a leisurely gearbox, oh yes, and a fair amount of low-frequency vibration, it'd be boring and annoying to ride. It's true that you need to be in the right headspace, and it's not the bike for a quick trip through heavy traffic or a blast along the freeway. But for an unhurried trundle along country roads on a warm spring morning, it's a surprisingly enjoyable steed.